Hello. As always, Masha tells you stories and welcomes you to the 12th episode of the podcast Film Grazia Artis, or just Film, if shortly. Here I share tales that inspire and reveal unique experiences of creators, makers, and lovers of all kinds. I hope you find this program interesting and encouraging, whatever you do. Practice art or enjoy living and learning about other people's creativity, backgrounds, and their blooming seasons. The blooming season is the metaphor borrowed from the natural world, where timing, conditions, and environment determine when flowers and plants flourish. In nature, each plant species has its blooming season based on climate, light, water, and temperature. Tulips bloom in spring, roses in summer, chrysanthemums in autumn. Just imagine how you enter a marvelous garden where every plant, every blossom opens at the right time without fuss. While walking slowly through a garden unlike any you've seen before. A place where the air carries the scent of stillness and growth. The path curves gently under your feet, inviting you without urgency, just as the sun invites each bud to open, but only when it is ready. You notice how some blossoms are already wide open, catching the light, vibrant and full of life. Some are about bearing fruits and seeds, while others remain tucked inside their leaves. Not because they are behind, but because their moment simply hasn't come yet. And somehow, there, that makes perfect sense. Nothing rushes, nothing compares to itself. Even the oldest trees, with twisted trunks and deep roots, seem to whisper, "You bloom when it's your season, and not a moment before." And as you pause, because you feel something within you, quietly unfolding, knowing that when your time arrives, it won't need to announce itself. It will simply be. Blooming is not constant, it is cyclical, following periods of dormancy, growth, and rest. Plants cannot force their bloom, they rely on the environment to signal readiness. In case spring comes late, flowers postpone their bloom and patiently wait to open the flower buds when the surroundings and temperature are low. In human life, the idea of blooming mirrors the natural world, since the personal development of a human unfolds in stages, influenced by age, biology, and experience. Blooming offers a compelling parallel. Our growth, creativity, and confidence also emerge in response to inner rhythms and external circumstances. Like plants, people go through periods of hibernation caused by rest, confusion, introspection, depression, and emotional unstable periods before breakthroughs. Some bloom in youth, others in middle age or even later. It would be strange if there were some universal clock or calendar. And everyone unrolls one's way in particular environment, which can be supportive or extremely harsh. A nourishing environment provides an individual with healthy relationships, education, safety, and the resources to speed and smoothly untwist the petals of a flower envelope, turn into sunlight, while fertile soil nurtures the roots. A harsh setting and conditions like poverty, starvation, war conflicts, and parental abuse cause trauma and can delay growth but don't prevent it. Adversity can strengthen resilience, leading to deeper, more meaningful blooming later that specialists call post-traumatic growth. Just like drought-resistant plants adapt, people can grow in severe conditions, though it often requires adaptation, flexibility, and supporting systems. But do people have or rely on such surroundings or communities that provide them with support and comfort? It feels like all of us live in an environment where we should always compete for something like achievements, career prospects, parental or partner's love, or some better positions beneath the sun. There are millions of families, and the diversity of parenting styles is also huge. Some encourage and accept, others, being dysfunctional, can significantly delay a person's flourishing because early emotional environments shape our capacity to grow, risk, and thrive. Facing criticism, inconsistent support, and conditional love, children grow in a setting that breeds self-doubt, fear of failure, and the belief that one's needs or talents are unworthy of attention. In some cases, children even become parenting figures for their parents, taking responsibility and care over them and delaying their natural bloom or having their need to speed up in development. People around us always say that community is essential to prosperity. We need each other to become stronger, better, more effective, and etc. Some even provide us with encouraging statements that belong to various scholars, like Einstein once said, "Only a life lived for others is life worthwhile." Or Helen Keller mentioned that alone we can do so little, together we can do so much, and all that sounds so beautiful and lyrical. But in reality, in many cases, communities become triggers of imbalance and problems that prevent people from growing and causing stagnation. I'm sure you can recall one of your classmates who was bullied, or maybe it was you who appeared to be the victim of bullying. People we spend time with always affect us, but not always for the good. They belittle us, manipulate, threaten, and that does not help us grow, especially if we are still trapped in pleasing others, perfectionism, and approval addiction. Then how about a secure base? Is it possible to find one? Psychologists say that some people do grow up or find themselves among others who offer nurturing support, encouragement, and emotional safety. These environments allow individuals to thrive, explore, fail safely, and eventually bloom when their moment comes. Supportive families, trusted mentors, inclusive schools, or creative collectives can all serve this role. But many people don't have such an entourage. Instead, they face neglect, pressure, or systematic barriers that delay or suppress their blooming season. In these cases, individuals strive to build inner strength and find alternative forms of support. In the past, there were brotherhoods, and then came creative clusters. Today, there are online communities, and there are also those who sail this voyage alone. Many bloom despite the odds, and this is where the concept of post-traumatic growth comes in, when people, even without ideal conditions, transform adversity into insight, creativity, or purpose. Since blooming is not about luck, it's about adaptability, timing, and the courage to keep growing in less than perfect soil. And when someone does find their flourishing after struggle, it can be even more powerful and deeply meaningful. There are some factors that influence the periods of life when we realize our blossoming intentions. The first one is supporting families. Psychologists like Erik Erikson and John Bowlby contributed significantly to understanding early childhood development and the role of early relationships. Bowlby's attachment theory emphasizes the importance of a child's bond with primarily caregiving for survival and health development. Secure attachment, encouragement, and emotional validation often allow individuals to bloom earlier and with more confidence. The second influencing factor is adverse childhood experiences. Surprisingly, deprivation, trauma, or neglect can also lead to a blooming season, though often delayed and harder earned. According to Emmy Werner's resilience theory, some people develop extraordinary strength and insight through adversity, sometimes blooming later in life once they found healing or purpose. The third curious factor is about personal features or individual traits. Thus, Angela Duckworth considered greed as a power of passion and perseverance. In a book published in 2016, she highlights that the power to overcome life difficulties can be sourced from interest, practice, purpose, and hope. A growth mindset is one more trait that raises adaptability. It was introduced by Carol Dweck, who revolves her theory around a simple but profound idea. The view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you live your life. A growth mindset can shatter self-imposed limitations and catapult you towards your goals. And one more curious trait is self-efficacy, introduced by Albert Bandura in the late 80s, that emphasizes an individual's belief in the ability to succeed in specific situations or accomplish a task, not having skills, but possessing confidence. That is linked to positive outcomes like greater motivation, persistence, and resilience in the face of challenges. I cannot agree more, since the last appears far too actual. In our meta-modern world, meta-adaptation is something we should learn first, to tell truth from untruth, fake from the original. But in the communities concentrated in old cultural vibes, the situation might appear different. What if cultural and social timing dictates alternative ideas on the periods of bloom? The expectations which announce relatives, communities, standards, economic conditions, religion, and ideology also play a huge role in people's lives. In some cultures, later blooming is more acceptable or even expected. If we look around, we find that in European cultures, many traditionally celebrate youth. Countless generations have kept up the idea that you have to build yourself a career, a family, or start a business in your 20s or 30s. However, there are also those who respect more late timing of flourishing. In Jewish culture, Torah and Talmud emphasize lifelong development and study. It is common and encouraged to treat education seriously and never make a pause, even after raising a family or retiring. Experience and questioning is often developed with age and are key in religious and philosophical discourse. East Asian cultures like Japan and China, having Confucian and Buddhist traditions, deeply value lifelong learning, patience and wisdom of old age. Japanese conceptions like ikigai and wabi-sabi support the idea that maturity brings clarity, depth, and purpose. Can we find any real examples in the past or in the present, like some people who managed to find their sourceful place to meet the blooming season and enjoy it? Many traditional and well-known artists and craftsmen reach their peak recognition after decades of mastery, and it's respected. Everyone knows Katsushika Hokusai, who created one of the most known Japanese woodblock prints, the Great Wave of Kanagawa. He began painting at a young age, but he wrote himself that nothing he did before the age of 70 was worthy of attention. Hokusai created his most iconic works in his 70s and 80s, believing his true art would come at the age of 100. In Japan, delayed recognition is not a flaw, but often a sign of honor. Artists are respected for their lifelong pursuit of refinement, proving that true mastery, like a flower, often blooms at its own pace. If we look among Western representatives, we will definitely find many, but as we deal with art, I rely on artists. Thus, Paul Sézane bloomed in his 50s and 60s. He struggled for decades, dismissed by critics and the public. Only near the end of his life did he gain recognition and become foundational to modern art. Grandma Moses, Anna Mary Robertson Moses, reached her blooming season at 78, since she started painting seriously at her late 70s after retiring from farm work. Her folk art gained international fame and is now in major museums. Alma Thomas bloomed in her 70s, and arguably, she's one of the prominent African-American female figures in art whose trace is special. After retiring as a teacher, she pushed abstract painting and became the first African-American woman to have a solo show at the Whitney. She is the first African-American woman to be included in the White House Permanent Art Collection, and furthermore, now she is recognized as a major American painter of the 20th century. Among fashion designers, the story is quite alike. Christian Dior, known all over the world for his new look revolution, hourglass silhouette and bar suit, reached his blooming season at 42. While Dior's career in fashion started late in life, his late bloomer status was not a determinant, but rather a catalyst for his revolutionary impact on the industry. His delayed entry into the fashion world allowed him to develop a unique perspective and vision, culminating in the iconic post-war fashion collection. The king of miniskirts, André Courrèges, bloomed in his mid-40s. After working under Balenciaga, he launched his own label in the 1940s, defining the space-age look and having a strong vision for the future of fashion, predicting that women would embrace more practical and active wear and that clothing would become more unisex. Rei Kawakubo, in 1981, first brought her collection to Paris. She was nearly 40 and prominent in Japan, but largely unknown in the West. Mugler and Versace were the harbingers of a new moment, but Kawakubo's appearance on the catwalk was a blast of barbarity, taking the look Hiroshima's revenge. Her radical, deconstructed fashion challenged norms and earned global influence with maturity and intellectual depth. Many celebrated artists and designers reached their blooming season later in life, often after years of struggle, reinvention, and walking behind the scenes. These individuals prove that maturity, experience, and perseverance can lead to late and lasting success. The timing of personal flourishing isn't fixed or purely genetic. It is shaped by a mix of nurture, challenge, settings, and inner strength. And psychologists increasingly view later blooming not as a delay, but as a valid, often deeply meaningful path of human growth. Whether you enter a marvelous garden and run through it at a high speed, I wish you to press a pause, adore the surroundings, and enjoy the ride. If you deal with nothing but surviving, postponing flourishing for some better moment, I wish you to succeed in that way. People who grow up protected have a great start. People who don't meet enough support deal with struggle and have stronger ground. It gives them depth. They have what others never experience, and that opens them a chance to pursue what matters. Let the insights you reach through good times or hard times be your strongest side. And even if you are among late bloomers, remember, you're not failing behind or missing out. You're arriving through a different timeline. Just enjoy, and I will be back soon.